Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Reviews Without Remorse. You have chosen wisely. My name is David, and my origin can be summed up in one day. And like a bad penny, he always turns up. My partner in archaeology, Joe.
What's happening, partner?
Some interesting stuff and some sad stuff, but we're going to get to that because this is episode 84. And in this show, we will discuss we lost another silent yet important filmmaker. Gary Kurtz has died, and we will go through his career and celebrate what he gave us. More DC news, leaks, something? New pics of Joaquin Phoenix in Joker makeup has shown up. Guess we're talking about this movie again. Bond 25 has a new director and a pushed-back release date. Let's find out who Cary Fukuyawa, I'm going to be slaughtering that name, sorry, is, and what we think he'll bring to the next Bond flick. And then, we return to the adventures of Dr. Jones and his friends. Brace yourself for our review of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. How are you, my man?
I am pretty good. Had a great day, had a good weekend, and I am anxious to talk about the third installment in the Indiana Jones saga.
There were a lot of things we couldn't do in 1977 that he could do later, but I think that the problem is probably more fundamental than that a film is a product of its time and conditions. All of the conditions that we had in 1977, the constraints of money, the constraints of time, and everything else, created that original film, and it was released in that format. I'm not a big fan of changing films after they're released. I know it's very common practice now, especially with DVD releases, to make the film a lot longer, add a lot of things in that couldn't be in the theatrical release, or change things. I think all of those are a mistake. Maybe on the DVD it doesn't make any difference, but for a theatrical release, I think you have to let it go.
Okay, born July 27th, 1940 in Los Angeles, California, Gary Kurtz started his career as a film editor, moving his way up to production manager and finally to producer. His first movie that he was listed as a co-producer. Now, in the world of producers, you have like the following people. You've got the associate producer, which is like the third person down the line. You've got the co-producer, second person. You've got the producer, that's usually the person in charge. And then you've got the executive producer, which 9 times out of 10 is just a title. Gary Kurtz was co-producer to a little 1973 flick known as American Graffiti. And that is the movie that put George Lucas firmly on the map. Some say it was THX 1138 that put Lucas on the map, but more would say that there was more personality in American Graffiti than the dystopian world of THX. Gary Kurtz then was brought along to help produce Star Wars. Now, what a lot of people don't know about Star Wars is George Lucas's original script had very lofty ideas. It was Gary Kurtz who was probably the only person ever to tell George Lucas, no, we need to do it this way. And from every report that I have read, it is Gary Kurtz that is the reason why we have the Star Wars that we have. Lucas had these lofty ideas, and we've seen what happens with Lucas when he has lofty ideas and nobody reels him back and says, whoa, wait a second, this sounds dumb. When you look at the prequel trilogies. Yeah, no, Gary Kurtz was it. He was the man. He was also the man who basically spearheaded Empire Strikes Back. That was Gary Kurtz completely. Lucas was busy working on the special effects. It was Gary Kurtz that did that entire production. He worked with Lawrence Kasdan. He worked with the cast. There were reports that when the cast wasn't getting satisfactory notes from Lucas as a director, because, you know, Lucas is famously known for his faster, more intense as a directing line, it was Kurtz that would step in and talk to the actors to help them find their part and their lines. He followed up Empire Strikes Back with The Dark Crystal, which is an amazing frickin' film and achievement in film as far as I'm concerned. One of the most amazing movies that I've ever seen in my life. All Jim Henson, puppets and everything like that, just beautiful. Such a testament to actual real-world special effects. He worked as a producer through the years, did a relatively infamous sequel to The Wizard of Oz called Return to Oz, a couple other movies, and died of cancer this past Sunday at the age of 78, September 23rd, 2018. He was replaced as producer of Return of the Jedi by Howard Kazanjian, who seems was a bit of a yes man, and we all see where that went. Kurtz, in an interview, was quoted as saying that the reason he left the series was after Raiders of the Lost Ark, that Lucas felt that the audiences no longer cared about story and was just there for thrills and entertainment, and was going to deviate from the original plotline for Return of the Jedi, that he disagreed about the Ewoks, he disagreed about bringing back the Death Star. And I'm going to quote, this is a quote from an interview that Gary Kurtz said with regards to the split between him and Lucas. "I could see where things were headed. The toy business began to drive the empire. It's a shame. They make 3 times as much on toys as they do on films. It's natural to make decisions that protect the toy business, but that's not the best thing for making quality films." Kurtz also went on to express his dissatisfaction with Return of the Jedi and Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, particularly displeased with the decision to bring back the Death Star. He said that the original plotline would have been bittersweet and poignant, as opposed to the euphoric ending when everyone was happy. This is Gary Kurtz. This man is... He's a man that is now, unfortunately, a footnote in history of Star Wars. With the way Star Wars has gone and everything, I kind of feel like the world lost a hell of a guy.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I've heard the same things about him in terms of being the guy who would kind of steer George back on track. And yeah, it's been said that, a long time ago, George got rid of the people who would confront him creatively, for lack of a better word. Gary Kurtz, I think, is the name you think of when you hear that statement. And yeah, I think he is an essential component as far as why Star Wars, and even more so Empire Strikes Back, are easily the greatest Star Wars films of anything we've ever gotten since. Yeah, he is sorely missed. And it's interesting that we're talking about this today, since we're talking about Last Crusade, and you want to talk about a good, the Raiders series. I mean, we said it last week, and I'm pretty sure we're going to say it more today. Drifted from its amazing source material, or the amazing original. And yeah, the same with Star Wars. I mean, it started out a magnificent saga and drifted into big toy commercials, and it's not hard to see that. Yeah,
I'm not sure what Indiana Jones has drifted into, but we're gonna talk more about that as we go along.
Yeah, but Gary Kurtz is absolutely missed, and yeah, he was a tremendous influence, and he made some spectacular films. Art
isn't always about the artist's vision, especially when it comes to film. Film is a collaborative process. You can't be not everybody is Steven Spielberg, okay? Steven Spielberg is like that one flash-in-the-pan rare thing who just somehow innately has an understanding of different things and manages to inspire within his departments the way to get his vision across. George Lucas is no Steven Spielberg. George Lucas needed a Gary Kurtz to be able to tell his story properly, as far as I'm concerned. And the saga Star Wars has suffered because of it. You need collaboration to make a Star Wars movie. You can't be a singular voice. A singular voice will destroy it.
Mm-hmm. A singular voice will give you the Phantom Menace.
Okay, a little context now in the makeup for Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. The costume is an interesting amalgamation of kind of Cesar Romero's mixed with Heath Ledger's costume. Honestly, I like it.
Really?
I don't know. I can't explain it. There's the picture I'm looking at right now is a picture of him. It looks like he's in a subway in New York of some sort. He's kind of holding a mask that he's kind of twirling around his fingers. He's got a big old grin on his face. He's got the ridiculous blue eye. You know, I'm not a big fan of the look of the makeup, but the way it all looks in context, I kind of like it. I'm not in love with it, and I'm not saying I'm ready to plunk down money on it just yet, but I'm a little more liking it now than I did initially.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to me because well, first of all, I'm wondering if what we're actually seeing is really just sort of like the first iteration, you know, maybe like the first version of the look, and as the film progresses, it gradually moves toward more of the Joker that we know. So I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in it, frankly. But yeah, I kind of feel like I'm looking at this and I'm definitely seeing creepy clown guy. Honestly, I almost get more of a Pennywise than anything else. But really, honestly, the thing it really reminds me of is Bill Murray from Quick Change.
Oh no! Now I can't unsee it.
Sorry.
Well, now I'm with you. Now that you said that, I'm like, damn it. Now it sucks.
Well, but like I said, I don't know what this is. I mean, is this the final Joker look? Because, you know, I'm kind of curious about this whole marketing strategy. It seems like every time they do something, this is the second week in a row we're talking about this already. Yeah. Because they keep leaking stuff as they do it. Or at least it feels that way. Maybe for all I know, this makeup is weeks old, and they're just little by little, very cleverly giving us morsels to keep talking about. Clever strategy, maybe, or it's just kind of clumsy. I don't know yet, and we will find out, frankly. But so yeah, I'm kind of curious. This might just be a really early iteration of the makeup, just to kind of whet people's appetites and to get them talking effectively, because we are talking about it. So we'll see. It's too early to call. I just hope this is not the final Joker makeup. I'll just say that.
I don't think it's going to be the final Joker makeup. You don't mess with an icon. Well,
Agreed.
You never know. Then again, Suicide Squad.
Right, look what we're talking about.
His name is Cary. Let me try that again. His name is Cary Fukunaga. Now, it sounds Japanese, but he was born in Oakland, California, it seems.
Yeah.
He has had an interesting career. He wrote and directed one of his early movies, was called Sin Nombre. He went on to write and then direct Beast of No Nation, which was a Netflix, direct-to-Netflix movie. He wrote the screenplay and was originally supposed to direct the movie that surprised us all with being really good. And probably his biggest claim to fame would be the first season of the TV show, the HBO TV show True Detective. There were 8 episodes, and he directed all of them. This is the director for James Bond 25. Joe, as you know, is our head of section over at the Being James Bond podcast. he actually did a little story about this on his YouTube channel, so please check it out. The date for release for the new Bond movie has been moved up to, I believe, Valentine's Day of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, I don't know what to feel about him as the director of Bond. I think I don't really have a feel for whether I can tell if he's going to be a good action. He can tell a story. I really think that he can tell a story as a director. That part I don't have a problem with. I have no idea if he can do action. And that's kind of a key thing for the Bond series. So I'm kind of little milquetoasty on this guy, to be perfectly honest with you. What's your feelings there, head of section?
Yeah, it's funny because I sort of felt the same way. I was a little stumped. Just to sort of backtrack a little bit, Danny Boyle was the original director. He was signed on, and after about 3 months, they parted ways, citing quote unquote creative differences. Okay, and my theory at the time was that the Bond developers were. I kind of had a feeling that everyone had seen Fallout. Everyone saw Mission Impossible Fallout and were just like, not only were they blown away, but they realized that everyone else was blown away too. And they're looking at where they're going with the next James Bond movie, which, quite frankly, have been a little subpar lately. Just not exactly, blowing people out of the water with their ingenuity and creativity. And Danny Boyle, of course, does little art house films. Okay, and plus there was the little thing about how he wanted to do something reflecting the Me Too movement. Oh, wow, okay. James Bond and the Me Too movement, little art house director, and then you got Mission Impossible Fallout blowing people's minds. So I kind of was looking at it going, okay, that's probably a pretty smart course correct. So I was sort of expecting kind of a yes man director who was going to just sort of execute what the producers were asking for without a lot of pushback, or they were going to go for a full-blown action director. Fast forward, and now we have Cary Fukunaga, who, yeah, despite the exotic last name, is very much American. I was pretty stumped, frankly, because I hadn't seen anything he did, but all of it looked very art house. Then you sort of add the fact that, yeah, he sort of went through his own parting of the ways due to creative differences with the It saga. So, yeah, I kind of was like, well, there goes that theory, because they just sort of swapped one art house diva for another. But then I watched the first season, or I'm actually halfway through it now. I kind of, I was scrambling to find something that he had done so I could sort of try to get a sense of what he would actually bring to the table. I figured True Detective is probably the best of the bunch that he's done so far, the most Bond-like. Needless to say, the series is not exactly what I would call Bond-like in any stretch. Yeah, first of all, I'm halfway through this first season. I am thoroughly enjoying it. Mm-hmm. It is really good. I really like the hell out of it, and I frankly can't wait to get back to it tonight. Having said that, though, I look at this and say, wow, would this translate to James Bond? Which of course by nature is not really a fair question, because you figure, well, I mean, the man must understand that Bond is not True Detective. Of course, he's going to do something for something James Bond. But where does that leave us as far as trying to forecast what to expect? I don't know. I really don't know what it means. I'm not even sure where the script is at this point. They had Mike Hodges' script, who Danny Boyle brought in. You had Purvis and Wade's original script that they were working on before Danny Boyle got involved. So the script is going to be part Hodges, part Purvis and Wade. I'm not sure. So yeah, for all my 5 minutes of pontificating about this, I don't know. I don't know what it means, and I don't know what to expect. So I'll just be anxiously awaiting everybody else, I guess.
I don't know. I feel the same way. I feel like this is a capable director. I don't know if it's Bond capable. We don't have any evidence of him being a Bond capable director, so we'll see. In 1938, after his father, Professor Henry Jones Sr., goes missing while pursuing the Holy Grail, Indiana Jones finds himself up against Adolf Hitler's Nazis again to stop them from obtaining its powers. Written by Jeffrey Baum, story by George Lucas and Menno Meyjes, based on characters created by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman, and yes, that was actually in the credits of the movie. Directed by Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the pandering to the audience film. Okay. It's not the worst Indiana Jones movie, but it's kind of funny how this is one of those series where when you say, okay, there are 4 Indiana Jones movies, let's count them out from greatest to worst. This is one of those rare cases where a movie series literally came out in the order of greatest to worst.
It's funny you say that. I wouldn't really call that rare, frankly. I kind of feel like a lot of I could rattle off a few series I think that just start out great and get progressively worse. It's funny, we were talking about Predator last week.
But maintain its popularity, but still maintaining its popularity, even though it's been progressively getting worse.
True. I guess that's fair. Yeah, and it's funny, this one, a lot of people really like this one. A lot of people thought this was a return to form, a return to the greatness that was Raiders of the Lost Ark. I've heard some people say they even enjoy it more.
I also had people tell me, "Oh, that's my favorite of them." It's like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. Let's talk some good things. It's still a fun flick, but it's not really classic Indiana Jones, shall we say? It's there's some fun things that happen. I kind of like the tank fight at the end. I still think, with them, with the little treads and everything like that, I thought that was great. That's like one of my favorite parts of the movie. But that's it. That's like the thing that stands out to me for the entire movie. Everything else just felt very paint by number. Very, get from point A to point B, and a lot of pontificating, a lot of, remember how we were gushing over Raiders of the Lost Ark? How they didn't explain everything that was going on. They let the scenes explain themselves. How much I gushed over when Indy was in the map room, and he was figuring, doing all of his calculations, and they didn't have to say anything. They didn't need to, because they filmed it absolutely perfectly. 5 times in this thing, Henry Jones is explaining, this and that, and so on and so forth, and that wonderful broguish Scottish, whatever the hell, just over-explaining the entire plot. And every time he did that, and it was nothing against Sean Connery. Sean Connery did fine with what he had. All the actors did fine with what they had, save for poor Denholm Elliott, who I feel got kicked in the pants from this wonderful little as I was watching the movie, I finally realized it. I'm thinking to myself, there's a point in the movie where the movie loses itself, and I really feel like it's the moment after Indy decides he's going to take the thing, when they first arrive in the Venice and the flirting scene that happens between him and Elsa. Right there, that's the tonal shift of the movie. Okay? And then they cement it during the scene where X marks the spot and he's trying to break open the giant X with the thing, and the
librarian,
Albert Einstein looking guy is doing the stamp. He hits the stamp just as he's hitting it down, and bang! And I'm like, that's it. That's the turning point. That's where everything up to this point was, okay, I'm in. I like this Donovan character. I think, he could be an interesting villain. and Elsa, okay, we knew Elsa was going to be a traitor later on, but, it was compelling, it was neat and everything like that. But once that happened, that's where everything seemed to turn. And all of a sudden, it became a literal comedy. Like the very thing that they accuse, that a lot of people accuse Marvel of being, is like, oh, they're always just so jokey. It's like, no, well, in Marvel, there's always context for the jokes, usually. Yeah. It's very rarely that it goes off script just to have that little zinger of a punchline. In this movie, it happened so often, I started getting whiplash. It's like, should I be scared? Should I not be scared? What the hell?
Yeah, that everything you said is spot on, and I will probably be even harder on this film than you have been so far. You're absolutely correct. There's a million things with it that are just off, but honestly, I feel like the film is never really on to really even find a mark where it goes off. I'll tell you what. First of all, it just kind of goes off the rails, jokey, almost from the get-go. But you mentioned that you said there was a moment where it just went really off the rails. I think there's another moment where I can feel like a real tonal shift where it just gets even worse. The scene where he's captured and he says, we'll capture Brody. He's got the map and yada yada. And Indiana Jones says, "The hell you will." He says, he's a brilliant. He knows a dozen languages. He knows every local custom. He'll blend in. He's probably got the Grail already. And I remember watching that when I was younger and like getting really excited when he said that. I like that was, oh my God, that is so cool. And then cut to drunk Marcus Brody stumbling down some street in the middle of who knows where, covered with chicken feathers. Like that right there is like that tells you all you need to know about this film. Like every single time they would go for the bad punchline, and instead of doing something that was mildly thrilling or anything that we would, it just goes off the rails at every moment. That scene when Brody is in the middle of nowhere, Sala finds him. First of all, they should never have brought back Sala. They should not. Bringing Brody into the field already kind of feels like when they try to pull Q into the field in a lot of the Bond movies where they're it was okay, and because I liked his character. I like the actor. But watching him, oh my God! You said it before. You led up to it even a few podcasts ago about how it's so undignified watching him just become the comic relief in this movie. Oh, it's painful. Yeah. It's painful. And that scene where he meets Sala is a perfect representation of the whole thing. He meets Sala just long enough to bump into the Nazis, just long enough we think they're friendly, and then suddenly they shift gears for no reason and say, "Papers, please." And all of that is so, and then he makes a joke, hits the guy. There's a tiny
run.
little,
yes.
Right, yes. The jokes, the tiny little skirmish, and then he puts him in the back of the truck that takes off. Like that to me is like a perfect example of what this film really feels like. Just one silly joke. It's almost like, there's we talk a lot about tone in films, and there are films that have that sort of realistic tone where it feels like a slice of real life, that you could walk into this world, and that way when the things get carried away, it's been earned, and you're on board because you've been on board all along. There's other things that feel like a soap opera, that feel like they're happening on a closed set, and that then you're just watching two people read a script and do their lines, and that's it. Like nothing about it feels real. That's what this movie is. That scene right there feels like it was just filmed on a tiny little lot, and even the camera work in this film gets bad. There are some times when they pull back and just sort of do wide shots of a lot of things, and I just get the vibe that there are some times when you want that, but there's other times when it just feels lazy. It just feels like you just put the camera back. It's almost like you're watching the Indiana Jones experience at Disney World. Like you're sitting in the stands watching the whole thing, and there's no interesting camera work. You're just sort of watching things play out. So yeah, I mean, my overall kind of, at no point does this film ever pull me in the way that the original did. And quite frankly, I mean, we went on and on about what a perfect film Raiders was. And Temple of Doom, it's, a lot of people don't like it. I, again, as disappointed as I am that it gave up that perfect tone that they captured in Raiders, they replaced it at least with something else. Like, they went for the nonstop action, the roller coaster ride, and it does that effectively. So at least it sort of replaced it with something else. Not my cup of tea exactly, but you have to at least give it to them that you do get caught up in it. Here, they take away the realism and they replace it with nothing. They for some reason, I mean, even the action is terrible. The tank chase that's supposed to be like the crown jewel action-wise of this film, I think it's the most boring thing I've ever seen. All of the action set pieces just feel like what we need to put an action scene here. What can we do with this? The motorcycle chase. What can we do? Okay, well, let's do a scene where this happens and that happens. And like, oh, if he put something in the spokes, it'll blow up, like it'll explode and shoot up into the air as if it was shot out of a cannon. Okay, fine. Tank chase. What can we do? Oh, we got to have the guys on the tank treads, and we got to have a scene with this, and we got to have a scene with that. It just feels so nothing. It never really gets anything resembling the kind of energy that the first two got. This one to me is just bland. The whole thing is just completely bland and lifeless. I've never really cared for this film, and I still don't.
Oh, well, nobody's expecting you to change your opinion after watching it again. I felt that there were a couple of things that worked okay. I don't mean to be contrarian to you. Obviously, this is a special place in your heart. I kind of felt that the scene where Henry thought that Indiana fell off the cliff at the end of the tank chase, I thought that was some fine, wonderful acting on Sean Connery's part. A side of emotion of him that you very rarely see in him as an actor. I thought that was fine. I thought that the little talk between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery on the blimp, where he was trying to communicate with him about how he was an absent father, and Sean Connery's like, I was a great father. I let you, learn on your own and stuff like that. I thought that was actually pretty nicely done. I kind of liked those little character moments that they had between the two of them. But the problem is everything else. Another thing I liked, and you might call me blasphemer, but I'm just going to say it, okay? The late River Phoenix, whether you liked or hated that scene, you got to admit, the guy aped Harrison Ford perfectly.
Yes, I agree with that. He does ape Harrison Ford perfectly, but kind of like with the entire scene, that entire opening scene, I get frustrated watching that, saying to myself, like, wow, you're going to lump somebody's entire life story. I mean, again, like, this is not a superhero origin story, but I guess it kind of is. It's the Indiana Jones origin story, which they've effectively created by making this. Oh boy, is it terrible. You said it in the beginning, everything that defines this person happens in roughly 5 minutes of one day. Mm-hmm. And it was just terrible. And River Phoenix, he's a fine actor, and I understand why they put him in there, and I understand what he was tasked to do, and he does it effectively. But seriously, if you make a movie version of My Life Story and you get a 12-year-old to play me at 12, don't imitate how I am at 40. That's not how I was when I was 12. So I thought just the very obvious imitation of Harrison Ford. Okay, I get the point, and he does it well. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you that he does it well, but again, I just don't find that to be compelling to watch him portray a grown up in a child's body. But again, that whole scene is that whole scene is him being Indiana Jones, and seriously, like, his phobia of snakes. He discovers the whip. He gets the hat. like everything that happens in come on, like I mean, like talk about, I mean, it's almost like like if you take the opening shot of Raiders and Indiana Jones in the shadows for the first, I don't know how long of the film before he emerges from the shadows after disarming the guy, this to me is like the polar opposite. Like let's now shine a bright spotlight on him and expose every secret about him so that there is no mystery left in this character. Okay, I mean, some people really liked it, but for me, oh boy, was that not what I was looking for.
Well, Joe, you'll be happy to know that basically all that was a demo reel for the up-and-coming Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah, like I said, I just, all of that I thought was, I mean, it was kind of clever. There's something very claustrophobic about this film. When they cut from that scene to where they're on the boat, and, you know, it's kind of like, you know, cut to the same guy 30 years later going after the same treasure again. Okay, there's a wittiness about that, but why do I feel like that? Like, it's almost like there's something very obvious that this was filmed on a very closed set. Like, this is obviously, you know, a set with a tank, and it just felt so. And there's a lot of scenes like that just feel oddly claustrophobic. Like, everything is being shot on a tight set with like even the boat chase, the boat finale when the boat is about to get chopped up by the big propeller. Very claustrophobic feeling. Like, for some reason, I just you know that just 20 feet away there's a guy, like, you know, the edge of the tank is probably there.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't get my head around it. But, and again, this whole thing, they're going after the Holy Grail. Like, that to me is so on the nose. It's so obvious. Like, and I feel like we overuse this term a lot, but I really feel it here. This movie to me feels like fan fiction. It really feels like a very amateurish take on Indiana Jones. Well, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. Okay, and then, you know, Spielberg wanted to do, you know, like, I mean, you hear all this stuff. George Lucas wanted to do a haunted house. Well, all right, we'll work that in. Spielberg wanted to do the thing with the father. Okay, we'll work that in. And I mean, again, the father, masterful casting in Sean Connery. I will not take that from anybody. I mean, that is masterful casting. But again, I just felt like this, you want to talk about something to strip away any mystery of this character? Well, that's how you do it. I mean, like, imagine James Bond's parents show up and they're following him around in one of his adventures. Like, like, I mean, somebody somewhere might go, oh, that's a cool idea. We haven't done that before. Yeah, there's a reason you haven't done it before, because it would be terrible.
Well, part of his mystique is also that his parents were dead, but that's a whole other story. I think this movie kind of feels like an overreaction. So many people reacted very negatively to Temple of Doom, which we have already discussed is actually, you know, it's not the worst movie of all, but it's a lot better than people ever gave it credit for. A lot more enjoyable than, you know, Willie Scott aside. Beautiful sets. I mean, we talked about how the Temple of Doom set is one of the best sets in the entire Indiana Jones movies. Still one of the most beautiful. Well, then you get here and it's like, okay, well, we're going to try to compensate for that by getting it more true to life and maybe lightening it up a little bit instead of having burning hearts being thrown at people and stuff like that. And it, you know, they overcompensated incorrectly. The sets were also very uninspired.
Very uninspired. When they get to the temple at the end, first of all, I'm very lukewarm on the idea. Like, you know, that the temple exterior is a real place.
Yes, I know. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was marveling at it as I was watching. It's like, wow, that exterior is just gorgeous.
Right, because it's a real place. And I kind of felt like, I don't know, it's like the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder. On one hand, I suppose it's kind of clever that they used an actual location for that. You know, it is a pretty marvelous real life location. But when you kind of look at it in terms of, I mean, it's almost like they just arrived at the Canyon of the Crescent Moon, which is obviously like a big matte painting. And then you get to this location, and it's almost like if you don't know that that's a real life location, you're going to say to yourself, well, that looks to me like a bad matte painting too. And honestly, if you think of it in that respect, you'd probably say to yourself, well, couldn't they have done better? So I'm kind of lukewarm on that location. But what's worse is they go inside, right? Now, seriously, to me, as magnificent as the Temple of Doom set was, this is the other end of that spectrum. That set, that is so boring. That is so lackluster. It was so uninspired. You walk in, it's like it's nothing but just a room with a hole on one end where the cave kind of goes, and then like there's like I guess like the two columns on either side, like just very quickly. And again, that just sort of goes to what I say before about how oddly claustrophobic it all is. Like the sets are so boring and uninspired.
Yeah. Throughout most of the flick, even the castle, as you know, as lush as they tried to make it look, it was almost like nothing looked real.
Exactly.
Everything looked like it was a set. Nothing looked like it was when he's in the freaking Well of Souls, man. You bought that.
Yeah.
You had those giant statues holding up the roof and everything
Totally.
like that, and that was just wow. You had the Temple of Doom, and that just looked like a place of evil.
Yeah.
And, you know, that you didn't want to be anywhere near. They get to, you know, where the Grail is, and it's just like, okay.
Right?
Did you run out of imagination? And just how the hell did that knight eat for 700 years?
I mean, like, you know, and again, you know, we said this with the last one, too. They really had they don't understand, or maybe I'm being rough because maybe it's hard to replicate what they were able to do with the first one. But again, you have another problem where you need, or you should have some sort of a supernatural element here. But wow, is that clunky? Like you get in there and there's the knight sitting there. I don't know. Then I don't know.
Yeah, he's been alone for 700 years. He's perfectly sane.
Right.
You know? In relative well health and everything like that.
Yeah, it's that was just a really awkward kind of a thing.
It kind of goes back to what we were saying about Kurtz at the top of the show. You know, there is collaboration that helps make things work, and I kind of feel like I think that we're slowly proving it as we're going along. The element that this is missing is Philip Kaufman.
Yeah,
whatever it was he brought to the original ideas of the script that they latched onto and used. That basis is what gave us the Raiders of the Lost Ark that we know and love. And without whatever edge he brought to it, the collaboration that remained didn't really understand what it was that worked, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing. Again, I can't really... Sometimes, I this is true for a lot of franchises where, you know, even the same director will stay on and do the sequels, and yet they don't have that same feel, and I can never really understand why that is. Like, I mean, seriously, to make such a leap from Raiders to this, like, how do you guys not know that? I mean, again, it's almost like if Spielberg knows enough, like, you do a film like Close Encounters. Close Encounters, for what that subject matter is, feels like it takes place in an actual world with actual people, and as Dreyfuss's character slowly going crazy, you understand it because of the reactions of the people around him, but then you fast forward to something like Goonies, right? You do Goonies, and you know that's just for fun, and you know it's just all goofy silliness, like when the guy falls down the pit, the short round guy. There's a scene in Goonies where he falls into like some pit. And because he's kind of like this Q wannabe, he makes this funny little gadget out of a spring and I think novelty teeth, and it shoots up and it saves him, right? And I mean, of course you're watching that and you're kind of going like, all right, well, this movie's meant to be silly, right? It's not meant to be serious. So why would you take that kind of a leap in tone from one movie in the same franchise to the next? I just find that so odd. Like, it's so baffling. Like, everything in this film is just so oddly illogical. And frankly, again, the frustrating part is they don't replace it with anything. They replace it with jokes, but even the jokes are so ham-fisted and overdone. You know, like,
and pedantic, very pedantic.
All of it. I mean, like there's the part when they get onto the blimp. Well, first of all, the only thing you need to know about this film, as far as I'm concerned, listen to the score. The score for this one is a score for a comedy film. I'm sorry. Like, when you hear dun, 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 like, this is like a madcap race. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, it's a mad world. Like, it's a madcap race to get somewhere, and it's all just funny and jokey and whatever. But like the part when they get on the blimp, right? Now, again, that's supposed to be, you turn the corner and you see the blimp. First of all, the matte paintings and stuff in this I thought were pretty awkward, and most of the green screen stuff looks really weak. But the part when they get on, like, just the tone of what's happening, they sneak on, you know, like, and seriously, every time Indiana Jones says, "Don't worry, relax," or whatever, of course, you know something's going to happen. So, yeah, the Germans come on the blimp. Okay, fine. And he walks off and grabs the other guy, and you see him, he's going to steal a uniform. Okay, we get it, fine. He comes out and he says, "Tickets, please." And he the one German, he turns around, he punches him out, right? Throws him out the window, conveniently lands in a big pile of luggage, right? Then Indiana Jones turns around, everyone's staring, and he goes, "No ticket." Now, if they left it at that, right? If they left it at that, I would have said corny, silly, but whatever. But they take it one step further, where now everyone grabs their tickets because they don't want to get punched. Oh, here, and the whole room is now waving tickets. So they had to take they take it too far. You know, again, they don't even know how to do. There's no sense of tone in this. Like, Raiders, you know, again, they were very careful with the jokes. Like, there was one or two that were funny, and boom, like right at the time when you needed a jolt of something funny happened. Fine, and then they got back to business. Here, it's just one joke, and they take it too far, and then take it too far, and then take it too far. You know, like, all of it is just, ugh.
We're about to complete a great quest, the Holy Grail, Dr. Jones.
Oh, rats.
This is it. Look, the shield is the second marker. We found it.
Indiana Jones is on the quest of a lifetime. But for some adventures, one Jones is not enough.
Dad? Junior? Don't call me that, please.
Well, speaking of taking it too far, it's about time we put this movie out of its misery. This is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Joe, I'm going to let you go first. Out of 10, what do you got for me?
I guess I'll be. I was juggling or debating on a 3, but I guess I'll give it a 4. I can't, again, I can't hit my 5 and say it's worth your time. I don't find anything about it. I mean, I know a lot of people like it a lot. I know I'm kind of in the minority here, but again, it's never done anything for me. I just don't find the character. This is when these characters really start to get, like, Indiana Jones as a character gets really silly. The whole tone of the film, again, something that was an action adventure, epic, classic, perfect film, is now a joke machine. All it's ever trying to do is to be funny and wacky and whatever. The part when they escape the blimp and get into the plane and do the dogfight. Now, again, you're going to get 2 seconds of dogfight, and he's going to shoot the tail. Oops, sorry, they got us, son. And they're gonna crash land, and another joke, and then they're in the car. The part when they're in the car and they go into the tunnel, and the airplane, for some reason, decides to crash and into the tunnel. Like,
yeah.
What is
just
that?
Just kind of like parallels with them, and they're kind of looking at each other,
right?
Like,
Just so they all can look at each other, going, "What? Look? There's a plane next to us. That's crazy. This is crazy. There's a plane next to us. Like, ugh." And then they do the thing when they're on the beach, and the other plane is coming down, and when you got Sean Connery, good Lord, running down the beach with the umbrella making bird noises. I mean, that's his whole that's the whole movie. When they're in the tank, when he gets in the tank and he bumps into Brody, and the two of them start making chicken gestures, like it's like they're playing patty cake in there. Like they make the little funny little faces and chicken
the little college song, whatever,
I mean,
yeah.
like it's come on, like who's writing this stuff? I can't handle it.
Jeffrey Baum.
Yes,
is
who
writing
by
this
the
stuff.
way was at that at that point in his career, it seemed like it was his mission to destroy the franchises that I love, because he also did Lethal Weapon 3, which again, another abomination. Just like that's the one where that one went off the rails, just became I don't know what people are thinking. Like, why you know, we were talking about, and I know I'm getting off the rails big time. We were laughing about Titans, right? And I was thinking about that again recently, and I was saying to myself, you know, when you watch the Titans trailer, like, basically what you're saying is, look at Teen Titans, right? The guy who came up with Titans said to himself, you know what? The people who watch Teen Titans, I think they secretly wish that Teen Titans was more like this, right? Like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you possibly thinking to say that the people who watch Titans now would really rather be watching Batman? So why do the people who were signed on to make sequels to great films, why do they think that what the audiences are really craving is just a nonstop silly joke fest? I don't get that mentality. I don't understand that. Why if you make a sequel to a mystery, why would you change it to a comedy? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just sort of baffled by what goes on in people's minds. So there you go, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. If you like funny, goofy, stupid, enjoy.
Well, you know, changing the tone of a series isn't always detrimental. I think it was James Cameron who, when he was given the reins of the Alien movie to make a sequel to Alien, was smart enough to say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to out-scare that movie, so I'm just going to do it as an action movie, and actually defined a whole genre of a new way of doing action movies.
Agreed.
With regards... And actually created a whole video game empire, which is something we'll go over if we ever do the Alien movies.
That is true, and you could actually argue that he did the same thing with Terminator 2, because that kind of went from more of a tense, scary movie into something that was much more action oriented, and successfully. Right. I will grant you that. Yeah, there are those times when that happens, but again, you have to make a good movie to replace what you replace it with something. This to me is, again, they replaced with nothing.
Yes. And Jeffrey Baum, his later career wasn't as good as his early career. He did the Dead Zone, the Christopher Walken Dead Zone, which I still think is one of the best Stephen King adaptations done yet. He also did Inner Space, which is kind of a personal dirty little secret favorite of mine.
I'll agree with that. And
The Lost Boys was another one that he also wrote. So it's not like the guy didn't have chops. I kind of feel like he had to write for like three masters. He had to write for Paramount, he had to write for Spielberg, and he had to write for Lucas. And when you're writing for three masters like that, you're going to get crap. That doesn't excuse him for Lethal Weapon 3, though. That does not excuse him for Lethal Weapon 3.
Thank you.
We'll get to the Lethal Weapon movies at another time. The movie doesn't offend me. It saddens me. It makes me feel like... The one thing that this movie makes me feel like, and later on when he does Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, the thing that I'm starting to get with Mr. Spielberg is he shouldn't do sequels. He shouldn't direct sequels.
Yeah.
That he comes out of the gate, sets the tone and everything like that. Let somebody else take over. Or something. You know, the Jurassic Park movies is not a good example because they also have progressively gotten worse. But but there are still things about this movie that I find to be, charming. And I will give it credit for that. And I still had a decent time watching it. I didn't hate it. I've definitely watched worse. Honestly, you pair this up against The Predator and gosh darn it, this movie just seems like gold. So I gave it a 5. I still think that as a part of the Indiana Jones mythos, it's still a worthy movie to see. There are at least still elements about it that sort of work. Maybe not completely, but I want Indiana Jones to get his Rocky Balboa. And this isn't it. Crystal Skull is certainly not it. I pray whatever the hell it is they're planning on doing with the upcoming sequel that they finally do get it.
Yeah.
Okay? I want him to get his Rocky Balboa. He deserves it. And this isn't it. And it's barely moderate. Barely moderate. So it's middling to me, so I gave it a middle score.
Yeah, and that's fair. But again, like when you say there are things in it that are charming, I just sort of feel like, you joked last week about how I gave Predator the participation trophy. I kind of feel like that's all you're giving this one is the participation trophy, because again, the parts that you call charming are just the parts that are not terrible. Like sure, Sean Connery is good. Sure, River Phoenix is good. Again, I certainly do not have a problem with the cast. Poor Denham Elliott, for God's sakes, boy, I would have, when I first heard he was coming back, I was excited. I said, good, we're back on track. But then they just totally just destroy his character. And, again,
and they destroyed Salah's character as well.
Well, they made him just kind of a goofy. It's almost like they destroyed all of these people because they put them in such weird, stupid settings, like this unreal world, this whole palette that this movie is painted on, is just awkward and wrong. And even the way they switched the Nazi uniforms, by the way. Oh, and by the way, here's the. I can't believe I missed this one. The part when he goes to Berlin and bumps into Hitler, like that to me is, again, like just so on the nose. Like that stuff like that is exactly what I mean when I say this feels like fan fiction. It feels like a very amateurish attempt to do Indiana Jones and say, well, what could we make happen that would be really cool? He's fighting against let's make a bump right into Hitler, and Hitler signs his book with a pencil. Come on. I like that. How, when they're in the room writing this, they have to, when they're throwing the ideas around, they have to just be giggling like they're smoking weed. I picture it, like, seriously, you always joke about how, like, in the developing rooms, they're all snorting cocaine and coming out with these crazy. I feel like these guys were just smoking pot. Like these guys are all smoking doobies and just giggling about, oh yeah, we'll make him bump into Hitler because that'd be funny. And he's got the book. Oh, Hitler will sign his book like you signed an autograph. That'd be funny. Okay, well, fine. Again, like they're all giggling and thinking everything is great. Oh yeah, the Holy Grail. Let's do that. Let's do a joke where X marks the spot. Wouldn't that be funny? Like even that I thought was when they did the X marks the spot routine, like that's where my brain is struggling, going, like one again, on one shoulder they're going, come on, give that one a break. That was clever, that was funny. I'm like, the other one's like, that was so stupid, Like, so yeah, I really struggle to try to give this one props for a couple mediocrely funny things, if that's a word, but I can't. This one, I'll never have Raiders again. I understand that at this point. I know they can't do it again. Whatever. But like I said, at least Temple of Doom had action. I find all of the set pieces in this to be so boring.
Dude, sometimes dates don't go well. You can't lose your virginity a second time. You can't have that perfect first steak a second time. Let's just leave it at that.
Very good way to put it.
And let's just ask the question that is going to be interesting as hell. Who asked you?
Oh.
I'll just have you know I have a top 3.
Yeah. There's a couple things I could say, but you know what? I think the thing that will always stand out to me like a fart in church, it's that final set of when they finally get to the Grail. Again, the exterior, I find that to be a kind of a lukewarm decision to do that, to do a real life. But once they get inside, wow, is that boring? Like, where is the set design in this film. I find it, the look of it to me is just terrible. Most of it. I really can't remember anything visually interesting in this film. All the camera work is clunky in this one. They make a lot of strange decisions, but boy, that set design and that last thing, that to me just visualizes just the lack of any creativity, any real spark. You know, it was so boring and so lackluster. Even the traps, like, ugh, I hated that. Again, that another attempt to get back to a Raiders-ish kind of thing, but they were so awkward, just so weird. I didn't like any of it. But yeah, the set design, that's what that'll be my cherry on top.
Yeah, I can see that. You gave a lot, and that's definitely a 100% agreeable idea. Now, for me, I've got a couple of things, ladies and gentlemen. The opening was cute, but I am not a fan of demystification. I am not. I feel like you can't sum up a person, and sometimes it's better not to really know the origin of something. Nobody ever asked, where did the giant shark from Jaws come from? Why did we need to know, about... If you were trying to establish a dynamic of a problem between Indiana Jones and his father, you could have done it better than that. I mean, have him, if that entire opening thing just had him picking up the whip for the first time, I might have been more forgiving of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that he just kept picking up this and picking up that and picking up that just was irritating.
The scar on the chin was weird to me. That was a really weird choice. That Harrison Ford has that because of a car accident, not because of anything related to Indiana Jones.
Oh, but it's part of the iconography. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Who the hell knows? Yeah. My second problem was turning Marcus Brody into an inept piece of comic relief.
Yes.
I found that to be painful.
Very.
Painful as hell. I don't understand the choice for that. If I'm Denholm Elliott and I'm reading the script, I'm like, really? It's like, well, I guess he needed to buy a boat or something like that. Who the hell knows? Yeah. Denholm Elliott needs to eat too. But the one thing that got me the most, the thing that I was like, this is just lazy writing in every respect. We need to go to Germany because there are three tasks that you have to go past. I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to remember, is what he said. I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to remember. Then, when Indy's going through it, because he's got the book and he's reading it and trying to get through it, he's sitting there dying and vicariously repeating it as it's going along. You remembered. The whole trip to Germany was pointless. And don't give me that crap. Well, he was reading the book on the blip. No, I don't want to hear that. That is just bull. Bull. That's lazy storytelling.
Totally. I seriously, he's carrying around a diary that is as thick as a small encyclopedia, and there was one or two things in there that they actually needed. And yeah, you mean to tell me there are 3 traps, okay? 3 traps. You couldn't remember the 3 traps? You couldn't remember the clues for each trap? I mean, if you see the movie once, you remember it forever. You can't remember these? You literally can't remember. And they've never thought about what the solutions might be, that he literally finally realizes as he's walking down the path what the solution would be to that. Like, you've never once gave it some thought. Maybe when we get to that point, here's how I should handle that. No, we've never thought about it at all again.
Ridiculous. Just very, very lazy, very lazy writing.
But that's why the whole thing feels like fan fiction. But again, I'm sorry.
Well, because this is what I'm really curious to see for your consideration, Joe.
I really, all I really have, and I feel like this is just a kind of a cop out. I will give it to the cast. I feel like the whole cast, everybody is pretty well cast, executed poorly, but the cast is very good, and even down to some of the specifics. I think Alison Doody is very good as the femme fatale. I think Julian Glover as Donovan is very well cast. Why they had to make him an American, I don't know, because again, I kind of always like a little exoticism to my cast. I like accents if we're talking about a film that is a worldwide sort of an event. So why they made him have an American accent in this, I don't understand, because he's not American. But again, everybody is very well cast, and I really do. If you're going to do Indiana Jones's father, getting the original James Bond, who this character is in part based on, is very, very inspired. So I will give it to the cast, although, like I said, I feel like that's sort of a cop-out, because I really can't come up with anything else in this film that really stands out to me as being exceptional.
For me, it was Sean Connery. I was very, even to this day, I was very moved by his scene where he's talking about, I never got to talk to him. I never told him anything. I found that to be, I enjoyed that. I did. And maybe it's because I'm a father now as opposed to back in 1989 when I was not. But whatever it was, there was just something honest in that portrayal, which I enjoyed. And I felt that even for everything else, even all the silly stuff, here was James Bond. Here was the guy who could literally kick butt like nobody's business, being all fumbly and stuff like that. And I kind of bought it.
Yeah, I really hate to be that guy this week. But honestly, like when you're talking about the scene when he goes over the cliff and you're talking about Connery looking down like, oh, I never got to say this or say that. I'm sitting here with the biggest eye roll. I hate that I'm doing that. But honestly, I just felt like all of those scenes just felt so ham-fisted in, like we have to stick in something here. Like, when you're hearing that any second now, Indiana Jones is going to come walking up behind them. What are you guys looking at? You knew that was coming, because that was how this film was. Like you everything about it had become so predictable after a short while. So I even those scenes, even the scene in the blimp, I just felt like they're just trying to, because again, the screenplay is not good. So when they're having the conversation about growing up with Sean Connery as Indiana Jones's father, I'm just sitting there like I'm saying to myself, you guys, you're just killing time. There was nothing really about that. Again, on paper it's good. Or maybe even that I don't know. I the whole idea I thought about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Hold it. Let me take it back a little bit. This is Sean Connery we're talking about here. Okay, this is not a guy. Sean Connery is a fine actor.
Of course.
He is an enjoyable he has an enjoyable presence and amazing. He won an Oscar for The Untouchables, basically playing Sean Connery.
Agreed.
Okay, so this was something rare from him. I have not seen Sean Connery give off a scene of emotion that felt genuine, and I felt this was the most genuine emotional thing. Not just action stuff, not just gruffing or anything like that. Like, I really felt like for that one moment, and I never noticed it before, and I was really going to have a hard time as the movie was progressive. I was saying to myself, what am I going to give for your consideration? Because I enjoyed the tank scene, but it's really not very well staged. And when he finally did that, I was like, there it is. It's just his emotional depth in that scene was more than the movie deserved, but still is an accomplishment for an actor who is mostly known for being an action hero. I'm not trying to give the movie credit. I'm trying to give him credit.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. And you're right. And I mean, you're correct that Sean Connery can more or less read the phone book and you'd be pretty riveted. So yes, right. His performance his presence is excellent. I guess my nitpicking of that is more like, you put a rose on top of a dirt pile and tried to call it something else. And I kind of feel like even at that point, you're just kind of rolling your eyes going, okay, guys, don't even try to do this at this point, because I'm already just not sold on any of it. The part when they do again, everything for comedy relief, but with the part where they're tied up and he drops the lighter and the floor catches fire. I kind of felt like that was the one line that he delivers that to me sounds like classic Connery when he's like, yeah,
The floor's on fire.
Yeah, the floor's on fire. I had like a From Russia with Love flashback when he says, "Where there's smoke, there's fire."
Well, Joe,
Have I made my feelings about this movie clear?
I'm almost afraid of next week's show.
I was gonna say, and if you think this is bad, wait till next week.
I am almost afraid of next week's show because, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to get into the infamous, shall we say, as, oh gosh, almost 30 years later, they bring back Indiana Jones and Marion. The results aren't good. And I swore to myself that I was never going to watch this movie again. Damn you, audience members. Damn you all for making me suffer through this again as we go through Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Expect a lot of South Park clips in that show.
I swear I was going to tell you, like, make sure, if you're editing next week, make sure you put those clips in.
I don't know which ones I'm going to use, but yeah, they're going to be there.
I say use all of them, frankly, but anyway.
Yes. So, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Joe, I'm going to be really happy when this series is over.
Yeah, it's a downhill slope, that's for damn sure.
We'll talk about it next week, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
There it is! The Holy Grail! Now what? Well, I guess one of us should stay here and guard the cup. All right. Why don't we draw straws and see who picks the one? Oh, come on, guys. Oh, real mature. Can't we just leave a note or something? What if I get hungry? Order in. Oh, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 150, 160, 170, 180, 1... Ah! And a large Sprite if... Slice. Okay, a large slice. It's the third cave on the left. You're gonna do a penitent somersault, then the door code is Jehovah, but it's Latin, so it starts with an I. Are you even writing this down? I thought you. Didn't see that one coming, did you? Think I'll grow a beard. Am I just eating because I'm bored? Oh, sad. Long live the quit. Oh, sleepy. I gotta get some new menus. Are you the pizza guy?
There's no time to explain.
Which one is the Holy Grail? This is the cup of the King of Kings. Oh, I had the same reaction when I had King of Kings.